It's being recorded.
Sorry about the fan on this.
Quick high fives. Feels really relaxed.
How you doing?
Hi, Liam. Hi,
Hi.
Liam. Ben. Hi, Amelia. Do we have anyone in the audience? Kate?
Not at the moment.
We have 9 attendees and 7 panelists at the moment.
No, we have a raised hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, there's a good mix of people there. Welcome, everybody. Do you want to do it? Yeah, we're just going to wait. So we might just wait just a minute or so because I think people are still logging in. I know people takes a few minutes, I suppose, to pop in. So we'll give it 2 more seconds. Hopefully the sound is okay, but if anyone has any issues, please do let us know. We've had loads of sun already this morning. What time is it? 2 minutes past. I'll give it to 3 minutes past. Yeah?
Why not?
Yeah. Okay, we've got 17 people in the room. So is this awkward moment at Zoom calls? It's like,
We've just started having small talk in the beginning, like before a concert. So you're in the lobby, it's like chatting before you go into a gig.
yeah, I like that.
That's my new approach to Zoom.
Yeah,
Zoom lobbies.
a Zoom lobby. That's what
The
we
voice
need.
from
New
off
feature.
screen.
Can't buy drinks though.
You can't buy a
Yeah,
drink.
just poured you a drink.
You could have brought your own.
I gotta say, I've started using breakout rooms with random names for people to go and have small chats before the event really begins.
Okay. That's a good idea. Let's not try that now. Okay, so it is now 3 minutes past, so I think we will get started. So welcome to everyone on screen, wherever you may be. Welcome to the Sussex Humanities Lab event, past, present and futures. So this event is part of the inaugural Sussex Festival of Ideas, a dynamic and engaging programme of talks, events and activities. And the festival is produced by the newly formed School of Media, Arts and Humanities at the University of Sussex. So this event is being recorded. You should have received a little notification of that, and we will post the recording to the Sussex Festival of Ideas website after the festival. Live caption is also available, and that can be activated by pressing the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen, right-hand corner of your screen. We will have Q&A session as part of this, so we welcome your questions via the Q&A panel or the chat, and we will respond to these when, I think, after our kind of like informal semi-structured discussion, and Kate is on hand to kind of monitor that as well, so hopefully we will get to your questions. So welcome to the Sussex Humanities Lab. We are live streaming, yay, from sunny Sussex campus. And we thought we would take the festival as an opportunity to reflect upon the journey of the lab over the last 6-7 years. So many of you will know us, some of you may not, and we thought it'd be a good idea to kind of go through where we are at the moment. So the lab was established in 2015 to investigate the impact of digital technologies on culture and society, and in its short life has substantially developed cross-disciplinary research capacity at the University of Sussex. In spring 2021, this year, SHL transitioned to a new leadership team comprising, and at this point I might just quickly introduce them, the other panellists. So the new leadership team comprises Alice Eldridge.
Hello, I'm Alice Eldridge. I'm lecturing music technology in the School of Media Arts and Humanities.
James Baker.
Hi, I'm James Baker. I'm a senior lecturer in digital history and archives in the history department.
Yeah, and I'm Sharon Webb. I'm a lecturer in digital humanities in the history department, and do things on digital preservation, community archives. And in terms of that kind of transition to new leadership, then I want to introduce Tim, who.
Hi, I'm Tim Hitchcock, and I was director of the lab up until a few months ago, and I'm professor of digital history in the history department.
Brilliant, thanks, Tim. And we are also joined by some of our core members, the core SHL members, Ben Roberts, Liam Berriman and Sam Ladkin. And we can have an opportunity to speak with Ben, Liam and Sam as well. So in terms of kind of why we're here today, so we wanted to use this as an opportunity to re-examine or to, I suppose, tell you about our priorities and our ambitions. We are a vibrantly interdisciplinary research group spanning arts, humanities, library services, computing and social sciences. And our research portfolio ranges from critical and creative AI to ecoacoustics, intersectional feminism to automated writing and open infrastructures, to critical heritage and creative practice. And it's at this kind of critical juncture in the world and in our university, in our lab, we wanted to take this opportunity to reflect on the work over the last half decade, to outline our current priorities, our values and our plans for the future. Kind of briefly, before we kind of get into some of the content, I just wanted to kind of make a note that Laurence Hill was hoping to join us today to kind of lead the Q&A. Laurence is a friend of the lab and a kind of long-term collaborator. He's a digital curator and is a visiting fellow of the lab and the school. Laurence sends his apologies. So instead, we'll just have a semi-structured informal chat with all these lovely people here and talking about the lab's past, present, future. So we pride ourselves on being a trans interdisciplinary agile group. So this is us being agile in motion. And what could possibly go wrong? So as I said, so we're here today to kind of think about who we are, what we do, and give you a chance to kind of see how you might envisage working with us. To see how you might engage with us. We want to also showcase our research and our research programme. We also want to demonstrate what makes the lab unique in terms of its position, both in terms of the university and as well as a kind of like, I suppose, wider higher education research context. And I think what we want to do in this is to kind of give an overview of who we are, what we are, but also have a kind of key research focus as well. So at this point, I am going to hand over to Alice to kind of think about or talk about, well, what is the lab? Alice.
Thanks, Sharon. I think a bit like the blind man and the elephant, what the lab is, you'll get a different answer depending on who you ask. And as Sharon mentioned, we're agile, so that's what we are and what we do is evolving. We are, of course, a research programme. And we're a space for a pedagogic space for developing teaching as well. We're a space, a nexus and a sandpit, I would say. We're a physical space, the lab that we're in now in the beautiful garden. We create intellectual, conceptual and pedagogic spaces. And we're a nexus between disciplines and a kind of sandpit for ideas. So we're interested in exploring the interactions between technology, specifically computational technology, society, culture, and environment. So academically, I think of us as a disciplinary nexus. We have reciprocal links between disciplines, principally the arts and humanities, social science and informatics as the academics, but also exchanges with conservation, with cognitive science, with other philosophy departments, with neuroscience, with the infrastructure of the university, with ITS and with the library services. So we were maybe initially thinking of ourselves in terms of digital humanities, social science, creative technology, and AI, informatics, data science. But we're expanding. So we're creating a sandpit, if you like, in a technological sense, and also in a more playful, ludic sense, a space where we can ask questions, develop methods and tools that cut across traditional academic boundaries. and in ways that foster greater social and environmental sustainability and justice. And this is important, I think, because the interesting facets of the world, the important problems that need thinking about, and the things that need making, reimagining, the new worlds we need to make, they aren't carved up by academic disciplines. Yeah, so we're committed to quite an experimental research program, experimental in the artistic sense, in the scientific sense, and in the engineering sense of understanding, creating, and making the world. So finally, then, SHL is a space, a critical, creative, empirical, generative, constructive research that draws from but is not constrained by our member disciplines to ask big questions and generate other ways of being. How can we understand the relationships between technology, society, culture, environment? How can we understand them? What do we want them to be? And how can we make them better? How can we make better relationships? So we'll come back to some of these questions, I think, in the rest of our discussion. But we're a research programme, we're a space for developing teaching curriculum, we're a physical space, mostly we're a community, and we're developing new ways of thinking and doing to hopefully make the world a fairer and more just and happier place to be. Hope you all agree.
Happier place, yes, please. Speaking of happy places, thanks, Alice. I mean, I really like this idea of us being a sandpit, and I think that's kind of really important, and ending on community is massively important as well. And in kind of thinking about community and thinking about, I suppose, where the lab has come from, I'm going to hand over to Tim to think about kind of, you know, why the lab exists, the kind of history of it, in terms of its context within Sussex. So, Tim.
Well, thanks much. And as Sharon mentioned, I was asked to speak to the why, which seems like a rather open-ended question. But where I always start is with that first thing, which is what the University of Sussex is. I mean, it really has been. It is a unique institution within British higher education, and there is over now a 50-year history of radical interdisciplinarity associated with the university. And for me, and for the people who helped establish the lab now 6 years ago, it was really an attempt was designed to reinforce that history of interdisciplinarity. I mean, I only came to the University of Sussex in 2014. I came precisely because of that tradition and that reputation. And when Carolyn Bassett led on setting up the lab in 2014 as part of an internal competition with Rachel Thompson and David Barry and Sally Jane Norman and myself, it was a moment when it felt like the new structures of the university, which at that point were only 5 or 6 years old, were making it harder and harder to work across schools and across disciplines. It felt like Sussex itself was drifting away from that tradition. And what was in our minds was, how do we actually reinvigorate that tradition? How do we intervene at a structural level? And in our mind's eye was a collaborative model that sought to enshrine that in the structures of the university, to reconfigure, if you like, how the university worked so that interdisciplinarity remained central to it. We also thought at the time that collaboration, that emphasis on conversation and interdisciplinarity was both inherently feminist in inspiration, and that it was also not necessarily digital. This wasn't about saying, oh, right, let's go off and join a bandwagon of the digital humanities. It was really about, how do we create a conversation? And so in the past 6 years, it doesn't feel that long, the real job has been about facilitating conversations between staff across half a dozen schools and creating a space where someone from the social sciences or computer science or maths or media studies or history can all feel equally welcome, can all find a space where a conversation can take place. And whether that's about making, if you like, the digital end of stuff, or about critique and practice, it almost doesn't matter. The important thing has always been, and at the core of the lab will always be, I hope, that emphasis on a conversation across silos, across disciplines, across vocabularies and languages that seem to divide us. And for me, it's been a wild ride. And has, filled what amounts to the end of my academic career in a wonderful way. And I do think of it as having been an ongoing effort to preserve that tradition of interdisciplinary space in the face of forces that are at work, not just in British higher education, but across higher education across the globe, that divide people, that force people in opposite directions. I mean, some of the projects we'll discuss in a bit, but that broader agenda, that collaboration that Alice worked through, seems to me a wonderful evolution of that first and foremost commitment to interdisciplinarity. And if we look at where the university is now, how the structures have evolved, in recent months, in recent years, with the establishment of MA in particular, the School of Media, Arts and Humanities, a lot of the aspirations that we started with 6 years ago have been made easier by the extent to which a whole range of subjects that were traditionally divided between schools are now all in the same school. But what that does for the lab, it seems to me, is challenge us to look beyond those traditional interdisciplinary areas to the rest of the university. It really is an opportunity to say, not only are interdisciplinary conversations going to be between philosophy and computer science, or between media studies and history or social science, but that it should include astrophysics, it should include maths, it should include medicine, law, and business. And I just look at where we were and where we are, and I look with anticipation at where the lab will be. And I think that it has been a successful and really powerful intervention in a series of structures which sometimes seem overwhelming and sometimes seem to want to stop us having those bigger, more ambitious interdisciplinary conversations.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tim. Can I just ask what for you has been the biggest surprise in all of this then, the last 6 years?
Table tennis.
Table tennis, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that the lab is a flexible enough space that where one goes to hear a talk or do a workshop is also the space where you can come and play table tennis of an afternoon, is, I think, a remarkable thing. And it's always been, those personal relationships and conversations that you have around particular work rather than any structured element.
Yeah. You can't strategize table tennis.
Although I got to say, I did throw my arm out playing it.
Health and safety first. That's brilliant, Tim. I was just going to ask James if James wanted to add anything to that, because I know you've been here for the last 6 years as well as kind of a lot of us here as well. But just as a kind of spotlight, quick reflection, would you add anything to what Tim just?
I mean, for me, I guess one of the things that I've always said about the lab over the last 6 years is that we are an investment in people rather than stuff. And I say that whilst looking at a bunch of stuff, because Alex, our wonderful lab technician, has set up a bunch of stuff in the lab today, so we can kind of broadcast this physically from this space and also via Zoom and participants kind of coming in. But for me, that's always been incredibly important, that's where the lab started, with people and trying to hire and bring in a range of people, and then kind of just set us on a path to say, well, try and figure out how to work together. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't work, but that was kind of part of the point. And for me, that's been for me, in terms of the attractiveness of coming here in the first place, that was one of the things that stood out for me. It's not hiring one digital person to solve your problems in a kind of humanities department or something. It was a clear investment in a group of people. And I think that's been its kind of greatest success over the last 6 years.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. I think I would definitely agree with that. People at the centre of it is massively important, not tech people. Although I have a nice picture now of Alex in the background while the tech around, which I will tweet. Okay, so kind of in thinking about, and thank you, Tim and James, for kind of those reflections. So what we wanted to kind of do was to kind of to move away from thinking about, you know, what the lab is, why is the lab, and to kind of maybe just have a more specific conversation around the types of research that we're doing. When myself, James, and Alice kind of took over in the leadership role in March, we wanted to kind of look at the priority areas that the lab would kind of hone in on over the next year or so. And for us, that was not only a strategic move, but also something that allowed us to identify areas in which each member of the kind of core group wanted to develop, things that we would focus on as a way to amplify the research of our lab members, of our team, and to think about the ways in which we might work towards a kind of broader aim. So sorry, is this flying? So in identifying these areas, which we're kind of calling as priority areas, we wanted to make explicit the lab's positionality. So not just areas of research for a strategic gain, but because these things matter to the wider context of the university, our experience as researchers, and of the way in which we contribute to knowledge production, exchange, and dissemination. We very much want to think about our bias, our own and those embedded in society, in technology, and to better understand and intervene in the social and political context of our work. So, for example, some of the priority areas that we will be developing, and we will be kind of shortly posting these onto our website. An example is philosophy of artificial intelligence, which will be led by Beatrice Fazzi. And so philosophy of AI, this priority area, engages with the important question of what is thinking in the 21st century. And it's concerned with ways of knowing, ways of being, and brings together questions on ethics, epistemology, and aesthetics. But this area is of wider significance and relates to the wider notion of what it means to work, to research, and to indeed live in the 21st century. And Beatrice's philosophy of AI is very much collaborative. It's very much across disciplines. And is a useful way actually to segue into another priority area, which Liam Berriman from ESW is leading on digital society. So I know Liam is here. So Liam, I don't know if you want to say a few words about your priority area, digital society.
Yeah, so digital society, it's quite a kind of broad area really, but it's a way of thinking about how we can connect together lots of different ways of thinking about the impact of technology on different aspects of society. So in ways that connect in with very kind of traditional kind of social science concerns of inequality, of social change, of thinking about the relationship between different parts of society, and including within that the very important role of digital technology and infrastructure now. And yeah, we've had a range of different projects that have sort of engaged with that. And I'm just thinking about one workshop we had a couple of years ago, which engaged in that in relation to the applied social sciences. So I'm based in the School of Education and Social Work, which are not kind of normal bedfellows of a kind of group like this. And it was a workshop that brought together thinking about how we engage with questions of big data and the ethics of big data within research in relation to kind of more participatory approaches of ways of thinking about social inequality and the role that big data plays within that, and how we can critically engage with that in the social sciences.
Brilliant, thanks Liam. Thanks Liam. And just to say as well, so some of the areas of engagement that Liam has been involved with include kind of digital childhood and youth, and also in terms of other members of the lab. Rachel Thompson has worked on the Reanimating Data project as well, which I think has been massively important, both in terms of thinking about digital archiving within the kind of sociology context, but also thinking about feminist practice within that as well. And then I'm going to move on then to spotlight Ben Roberts. so Ben is also leading on another priority area called media archaeology and experimental technology. So Ben, would you like to kind of quickly summarize your priority area?
Yeah, so this is a priority area. I guess it's addressing two specific questions, which are what can digital humanities learn from media archaeology and contemporary digital culture and the forms of knowledge production known in that? And also, how can experimental engagements with technology of the past, present and future facilitate research, facilitate arts and humanities research? So, so it's really thinking about media archaeology as a way of interrogating the digital. And if you're not familiar with what's meant by media archaeology, it's a way of thinking about the past and apparatus of the past as thinking about their material form, and also questioning the way that we think about technological transformation. So challenging traditional narratives about technical developments or sort of teleological accounts of progress, and emphasizing instead discontinuities or the cyclical nature of technical change. So practically, that actually means using, repairing, and experimenting with old forms of media apparatus. So it can be seen as a form of hands-on history, to use a currently popular term, or another term that people like to use is thinkering, sort of playing on thinking and tinkering. And it's aimed at the kinds of tacit understanding, unexplicit understanding that we reveal when we try to recreate or reenact the past. So that's one part of it. And equally, this is a priority area that wants to think about embracing experimental uses of technologies as a way of doing humanities and social science research in general. So building new forms of tools or new forms of experimental encounter that could help us think about our disciplines.
Brilliant, thanks, Ben. I really like this idea of hands-on history. It's really kind of thinking about the types of areas that Tim had mentioned as well, that we're not just critical, we're not just making, we're not just doing, we're kind of all those things. So I like that concept. Sam Ladkin is also here, and Sam is the kind of, I suppose, newest member of our core group, which is kind of part of the kind of operational level of the lab. And Sam will be leading on gaming and play, and I'll let Sam kind of maybe speak to that a little bit, Sam.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm very new and very shiny and very much perpetually out of my depth. So that hopefully will clarify things. Yeah, so I'm leading on thinking about games, video games and play, though very much drawing on the expertise of other people in the SHL more generally, and very dependent on their expertise. Just maybe as a background to how and why I got here. This is a return to Sussex in 2019 after being here as an undergraduate. So I just wanted to kind of echo some of the kind of sense of Sussex's history and why I feel this might feed into that kind of logic. And just to echo Alice as well, most of my work in the past has been in experimental literature, experimental cultures, and working across disciplines, painting, poetry, dance, theatre, various kinds of things. So in some ways it was a natural extension to try and work out what experimentation in games might also include. The second kind of reason for this was also just wanting to be able to hear my students a little more clearly. And it was increasingly apparent that there was a vast cultural realm that they were conversant in and accessing that I wasn't able to kind of reach them through, and wanted to be able to reconnect and talk to them at that level as well. So that was part of the kind of twin drives. One was to be able to think about games as being expressive, meaningful forms that my students in the future might be able to make, just as they were able to write poetry and just as they were able to graffiti the bus stop and write names on the back of their pencil cases. You know, this is a way of getting something out there and getting something across into the world. I guess it's also just worth reflecting on the strange place of games and play in academia. There don't tend to be games departments as there are literature departments, and it's interesting to think of why we don't think of games as being implicitly something to be studied. So they have been studied in anthropology departments, to a lesser extent in sociology, and via other mechanisms in education, kind of pedagogy of play, but we don't tend to think of them as aesthetic forms that we want to interrogate. So I wanted to be able to introduce that aspect of this as well. So those are all the kind of reasons why I want to introduce this work, and maybe just to mention a couple of works to people if they're listening in that might be interesting to kind of search out. One of the games that several of us have mentioned as doing the kind of experimental and interesting work that's important to us has been Anna Anthropy's Queers in Love at the End of the World, a very short text-based game that does something very profound with game logic, I think. And another one that I've just been reading about is by a New York-based game designer called Robert Yang. It's not safe for work particularly, but it's called Hard Lads. And it's a kind of satire and critique and expression of masculinity and the kind of bonding through violence of masculinity. So these are works that strike me as important experimental pieces that it might be worth thinking about. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam. And to know, I think, you know, the area that you're leading on, I think it really kind of brings something new to the lab and kind of raises, you know, important questions in terms of, you know, new media engagement with knowledge and knowledge production. So looking forward to gaming and play. So, and then in just thinking about, so an area that I'll be leading on, one of the priority areas for the lab, intersectionality, community and computational technology, so ICT for short. You like acronyms here.
Questions?
Oh, huh?
There was a question from Mayuk. Do you want to take questions?
Who would do it at the, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this area that I'll be leading on, intersectionality, community and computational technology, this area is largely born out of work that I do with Cécile Chevalier, most recently within the context of our AHRC Irish Research Council grant, IFTI, which is Intersections, Feminism, Digital Humanities and Technology. And IFTI addresses kind of a critical challenge in contemporary society and culture, that of the gender imbalance in computational practice and systems. And this challenge has deep implications for digital humanities practice and theorisation. The overarching objective of IFTI and indeed the other network that myself and Cécile run, FACT, which is Feminist Approaches to Computational Technology, is to uncode gendered assumptions and to question our digital environments and environments and systems, and to embed intersectional feminist practice and theory within DH with a view to the creation of new DH futures. So thinking about kind of feminist DH or queer DH or post-colonial DH. My priority area then builds on these projects, but also makes the lab's research values explicit. So how we work as a team, how we are community focused and orientated. We want to encourage lab members to think about the ways in which we work and how we build projects. So threading values of intersectional feminism from research conception to bid development and all the way to project completion. So the area that I'm looking at is a research area, but it's also kind of like a value system within the lab as well. So Alice is also leading on a priority area. So Alice, will we hand over to you at this point?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm carving out the spaces I'm calling experimental ecologies. So this is a space to think about experimental approaches in those ways that I talked about before to some of the big questions at the intersections of the anthroposphere or technosphere and the biosphere, if you like, because it strikes me that that's one of the, we're worried necessarily about the climate, and then separately we have these conversations about AI, but actually really it's the interactions between them that we need to think about, and we're not going to solve all of those in this space, but it feels important to cross-fertilize concepts, questions and methods from the studies of biological, cultural and technological systems. So this is about creative and applied work in creative technology, environmental humanities, conservation. It's remixing, I suppose, ecology with sci-fi, with music, with AI and environmentalism. So to give some examples, part of this is around ecologies in biological sense, part of it ecologies in musical and technological senses, and then the intersections, the mixing of those of those, if you like, biological, natural ecologies and technological, accepting that inevitability in the future. So creative performance systems as ways of being in the world. Evelyn's robot opera looks at understanding the relationship between humans and robots in a creative musical space. Thor's Intelligent Instrument project looks at understanding AI through the lived experience of playing instruments that are intelligent. And our feedback musicianship project is similarly a kind of a lived philosophy, if you like, a thinking through ways of being by making systems. There's also Joe, I don't know if Joe would like to speak to this. Joe's developing the concept of ludic ecology, so mixing sci-fi and gaming with ecotherapy, so looking at more playful ways of being in nature. This also involves more applied work, such as ecoacoustics, so borrowing methods from music technology for creating applied methods in conservation. And bringing all of these ideas together then starts to decolonize, to widen our conservation imperatives, if you like. So in other work, we're integrating indigenous knowledge with AI, for example, thinking about what we can learn from all these different ways of knowing to create the environments for the future. I think that's enough.
Quick handover.
Quick handover.
Thanks, Alice. I don't know, does Joe want to mention anything if Joe is there? I can't see the chat. So.
Joe, I don't think panelists, have the power to speak. Yeah.
Joe says, "I'm good, no thank you." Fair enough, Joe.
We'll bring Joe in the
Yeah.
We'll bring Joe in the future.
Thanks, Alice. I mean, and what I really like about kind of the area that you're working is it really brings together all those things that, you know, we were thinking about the value system as well. So it's not just a research area; it's definitely embedding it kind of the values of the lab.
Absolutely, and I think that in itself is one of the values of the lab, right?
Yeah.
It's like you talk the talk, you walk the walk, you explore through doing and through being, and it becomes a space to live these ideas as well as think about them and talk about them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just kind of handing over things. So we've talked about our kind of priority areas, but kind of connected to that, we also have a number of strands, and James is working on digital pedagogy, and I know Suzanne is here as well, and she's working on open publishing. So I might just turn to James to think a little bit about digital pedagogy.
Yeah, I guess so. This isn't really a priority area as much as we wanted to make sure it was recognised within the way in which the lab is going to work in the future. As Tim mentioned at the beginning, one of the important things to note about Sussex Humanities Lab is that it came out of an internal funding competition around research. And so we've always been very heavily focused on research. But of course, we have, along the way, all of us been involved in pedagogical initiatives in the university, whether it be at curriculum level or whether it be at the kind of more informal kind of workshops and kind of skills level. And it felt really important as we kind of look ahead to kind of pull those things together and have a kind of a space and indeed just a person really under which we can kind of keep that stuff together. So thinking about digital pedagogy really for me brings together sort of a few different strands of activity. So one is things like the open workshop series, which Ben Roberts has been successfully running now for, I'm going to say 4 years, but you might tell me it's longer, which has been something in the lab that's brought people together from here and outside the university. There's a developer I've worked with on a project who came to one of our open workshop sessions. And that's where we met, and that's, you know, a kind of a working relationship with someone in the tech community locally came from that. The stuff Sharon's been doing with the FACT network is to some extent involved kind of pedagogical work around workshops and kind of reading things together. And we've done things like carpentries workshops, library carpentry, software carpentry being a kind of international movement, but something that's also happened with the labs. Is that part of it? Then for me, there's also the kind of the curriculum stuff that obviously is important to every university. There's a new BA in digital media and culture launching, which Ben is kind of leading on. And that's part of kind of, to some extent, coming out of the lab, but also beyond the lab. We have a digital strand in the history degree programme, which Sharon and I have worked on since we arrived and been gradually iterating it over the years. And it was recognised by the Royal Historical Society a couple of years back. And there's a strand in the human and social data science MSc run at informatics, which has a kind of lab flavour, particularly through techno-feminism. So there's this curriculum bits we're trying to pull under one roof as well. And then there's the doctoral work. There are PhD students that we have in the lab through Chase. There's two Leader-Hume doctoral partnerships, including one that I'm more aware of around neuroscience and AI, for example. So we're just trying to give things a home, really, and it feels really important to a space like this that we recognise that the work we do with students and each other learning things always feeds into our research. And we kind of been denying that a little bit the last few years in the way we articulated ourselves because we were shaped as a research agenda. But increasingly that becomes important as we look to mix those things in the future, I think. And I think in a way open publishing kind of links to that. But I'll leave Suzanne to say a few words about kind of what open publishing is doing as a kind of strand that runs through all of these priority areas.
Thanks, James. It's like James saying, and another strand that's sort of running through. We're quite we're trying to be quite experimental with it, really. I think what we want to do with thinking about sort of, I'd say open publishing, but actually open practice more broadly, is thinking about some of the things that we might want to just experiment with and try out, and sort of new forms of publishing that might not be text-based at all. Things might be partly text-based and quite mixed portfolios of research work. So that's what we're going to be looking into in the next year or two. I'm quite interested in, probably mainly smaller projects and think about how to make those available openly, but also can be thinking about the sort of technical infrastructure really that's required to support this. I mean, we mentioned something earlier around sort of archives and digital curation, and just thinking about what we need really at the university to support those that type of research. That, researchers are more easily able to put their research out there in maybe slightly more interesting ways we've been able to support in the past, particularly around sort of digital humanities and scholars as well. So we're trying not to pin ourselves down too much, but at the same time have a nice balance of perhaps having some particular things that we can show, and some particular publications, and also some relevant seminars as well, to pull lots of people in to have that opportunity to discuss open practice more generally, and like I said, what that means for digital humanity.
And there's just something that's going to add to that as well, is that for me it feels really important that open practice is here not just as a kind of utopian openness. And one of the real things that we've been doing the last few years is thinking really carefully about what is open and what is appropriate openness, because we are not a kind of space where we just stick an open license on everything unthinkingly. And I think that's reflected through having a strand where we think more carefully about that. And also just the very fact that, Suzanne is kind of leading this for us, because it's really important that the library is part of the lab and always has been part of the lab. And is not just a secondary position within the lab, but has leadership roles within what we do. So we do spread across departments, but also into that kind of professional work that colleagues in the library do that's just so valuable. So,
yeah, definitely. I was just going to pick up on something so James, you were talking about kind of like the kind of teaching aspect of the lab, and just thinking about how also in terms of supporting junior researchers as well. So through the JRA program as well, you've been able to engage students in some research in the lab. I know Jake Norris from history has done the same as well. So we've had second year researchers in here during the summer using the lab tech, kind of getting to grips with digital archiving, digitization. I think that has been massively important as well.
Yeah, and I think, so for those who aren't aware, so the Junior Research Associate Programme is something that's run by the university centrally every year, where undergraduate students between going into their final year get an opportunity to work with researchers and to pitch projects and then the work on those projects over the summer. And I've got a project starting in a couple of weeks with a new JRA student. And it's not just me who's been involved in JRA. So Sharon mentioned our colleague Jake Norris, and he had a number of JRAs attached to a research project who were using some of the lab's equipment to think about how you digitize Palestine, for example. I've been working with JRAs on various projects, mostly related to museums in relation to other research projects that I work on. And I think one of the things that's been really heartening about those projects is these students go into it thinking they kind of have a sense of what research is. And they not only come out the other side when working with us thinking, oh, I think I know what research is now and it's way more complicated. But they also start thinking really carefully about that relationship between the sort of stuff we care about in the lab. So coming back out of a JRA thinking, well, maybe they wanted to go into a career in something, but actually their kind of ideas have changed because they're really thinking carefully about that relationship between sort of their research, wider society, and kind of digital. And often it's in terms of, at least the work I do with more museum-based stuff, it's about the kind of ethics and problematics of the digital in particularly museums that have objects displaced, well, objects that were displaced in the colonial eras of the UK, and what we can and can't do with those or should and shouldn't do with those. And they've been really wonderful opportunities to work closely with students and to develop on sort of themes that come up in classrooms, and then students come and talk to you and say, hey, can we do a project? And then things kind of go from there. So it's really lovely to see that pipeline, I think, of undergraduates moving through the lab who are going out into the wider world, and maybe like some other people here like Sam, they'll come back to us one day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of our third years from a few years ago have come back and they're working with Queer and Brighton on their archiving, their digital archiving. So it's nice to see that kind of continuation and ongoing collaboration. Thanks, James. Thanks, Suzanne. So, I mean, at this point, I think we've talked about past, present, futures. We would love to kind of, I mean, if we could see the audience, you're just like a little blip on a chat. So if anyone has any questions or if anyone has any comments or anything they would like to ask anybody, please put it in the chat. We've a few minutes to kind of go through, and if there is.
So Mayuk has a question.
Yeah.
So it's just on that piece of paper.
Can you add in Mayuk?
Yep, I can allow her to talk.
I think you can bring someone in.
Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you so much for this event. Actually, really enjoyed it. Talking about the research when Kate Malone talking about the research and how the student engagement of Sussex, in terms of the research and in terms of the colloquium. Now, one thing I just would like to know that when we're talking about research, okay, there are different ways and different methodologies which we apply to fundamentalize our research. Like for me, I always wanted to do something like I'm associated with Enactus Sussex, where I'm doing a creative research on understanding student emotions, okay, and making syllabus for students, quote unquote, for a school and it UK. So when we're carrying forward this research, what are the different areas we should be more inclined towards, which will help in the foundation of the system to build in a more prospective way, where there are going to be more students, more enhancement to research, more enhancement to develop new topics, develop new ideas. So what are the different research areas which a student can approach in this pandemic?
So the different research areas students can approach. I mean,
For example, just one second. For example, when we're talking about research, so when I do a research, I basically work on socio-political aspect of cultural literature. So I try to look on student cognition and the cognition of human touch or the cognition of human mindset in something in a much more creative way. Now, when we are doing this research, we need a lot of support systems, we need a lot of books to read. And when we're not getting the support systems to acquire, we are reading journal articles, which I really like to do that. So I find that there are ways to develop research in a more congruent and more accurate way. So what are the ways by which a student can enhance their power structure mentally, as well as quote unquote apply those power structure in their respective literature?
okay. So I might tackle that in the first instance and then kind of open it out. So I mean, I think it's a really important question, and kind of thinking about it in kind of like, I suppose, reflecting on what James has talked about in terms of our position, both as a research lab, a research program, and as a kind of people who are also engaged with teaching. The types of teaching that myself and James do, we've done a lot of collaborative kind of teaching together. So, for example, we just finished our archiving power module, and that was very much focused on thinking about kind of traditional archives and then moving on to thinking about digital archives. So we empowered our students to really think about the kind of modes of knowledge production, modes of knowledge dissemination. And what we embedded across that, I think, in terms of that digital archiving or digital archiving power, was really thinking about power structures, really thinking about challenging those power structures, and a focus that's come through, I think. So if we think about the dissertations that have come through, without naming any names or anything like that, there's been a strong focus on social justice in archiving. There's been a strong focus on the kind of marginalised voices in archives, and how community archives can help in the kind of work of amplifying those voices. So I think a lot of our students, kind of through engaging in the kind of traditional idea of the archive, and then the kind of more kind of like now idea of digital archives, they really got to see that kind of critical application or critical engagement with means of power. And I think that has been a kind of a maybe strength in the kind of way that we framed that module. I'm not too sure if that answers your question, but what we did with that, we kind of tried to give them the kind of support in terms of, that kind of traditional overview of the literature, and also engaging with the kind of more practical side of things as well. Tim has their hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that by saying that, and this gets back to the significance of the digital humanities and the digital in modern research cultures, is that one of the things that has made possible our take on interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity has been the centrality of tools and methods that actually transcend traditional disciplinary boundaries. I mean, in a sense, things like the tools of corpus linguistics are as relevant to philosophy as they are to history, as they are to social sciences. And similarly, a database, knowing how to use and wield and think about critically a database, is relevant across 2/3 of the disciplines in the university as a whole. So that the minute you step into the digital frame, the ability to transcend or to underpin more specific methodologies that are discipline specific becomes much, much easier.
Yeah.
I was going to add from my perspective that I think one of the things that the lab has been very good at, I'm not sure if it's a trick, but something we've been very good at, is when we're talking to the audiences that we need to talk to, so say a funder, for example, or say a particular disciplinary area where we're writing a paper into those disciplines, I think we collectively have that capacity to be quite disciplined and be very clear and say, this is what we're actually going to try and achieve, or this is what I have done that clearly fits within discipline area X. But the reality of the research is always much more experimental and chaotic in a good way, I guess. I was thinking, when the question was being asked, I was thinking about some work I've been doing the last few years with colleagues in development studies, which the outcome of which has been working with young people in Iraq and Egypt to try and work with them to understand what training materials they need to look after their intangible cultural heritage, and providing not training at them, but sort of training with them. And I think for me, that's a project where we started off with very clear goals, but most of the project, from my perspective, has involved kind of learning how development work works, and then figuring out how to write a paper in a development workspace with my colleagues in that area, because I had the knowledge and expertise needed to deliver key aspects of the project, but I wasn't steeped in some of those methods. So the research design kind of had a sort of confidence that we can do this work, and we know we can, but we need to experiment a little bit. But the reality of the work is often, without being disingenuous to our funders in a way, the reality of the work is often much more complicated. I think that's something we're quite good at as a group, which is that we can kind of confidently move between disciplinary areas, but then speak to audiences in the right way when we need to speak to those audiences. And I think that's a real strength of what we have.
Yeah, definitely. And just picking up on what Tim was saying about kind of tools and methods, and even databases or corpus linguistics, the work that we do with our first year history students and art history students, for example, we talk to them about databases, we talk to them about kind of data models, we talk to them about kind of like the biases that are embedded in these things, the relationships between knowledge and systems of oppression. So, these are things that we're teaching our first year students, and we see it bubbling up then in third year dissertations, I suppose. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that, or
Maybe if I can just back up that last point a little bit further, which is to say, one of our colleagues who isn't here at the moment, Irene, her PhD thesis involved questions of opacity, making that which is transparent opaque. So it comes, as far as I understand it, from a thinker called Bernard Stiegler, though she may have other references there. So that's the idea that we're in a kind of digital culture, and we have a certain kind of visibility and a technical access to it that's quite limited. That means we can't see it. We can't see how it works and how it's operated. And one of the reasons I've been so keen to talk to people in SHL is because they have a facility to understand and describe the workings that are occurring underneath the screen that's in front of us. So it's about making what's otherwise transparent opaque. I think more generally, I don't think I'd dissociate the SHL work from just other questions of pedagogy. And I think it's a huge and involved and difficult question of pedagogy. And I suppose my only other reflection, and it's just in the start of my reflection really, is thinking about the temporality of the question, which is interested, raising the question of student emotions. One set of work would be a kind of phenomenology of pedagogy. So what does it feel like usually to be in the room? What does it feel like to be confronting material at the time? How do our kind of corporeal sense of meaning affect the ways in which students can learn, and either dissociate from that learning or feel engaged in that learning? But the other might be the temporality of affect or emotion, which is going to have a very different kind of feel to it, which is that suddenly something rises from the depths of your kind of subconscious, or sometimes something appears that hasn't appeared for a long time, or there's no way of predicting or gauging, I think, students' responses or teachers' responses kind of in the room. So it's about, for me, partly being open to that, the very varied temporality of the teaching and learning experience, see how people might engage. The only other thing I'd say is to return to kind of maybe where Tim came in around a sort of the approach of SHL and the approach of Sussex, which is maybe not to tether things too much. So I'm always reminded of a form I used to have to fill in when I put forward a new course at a previous institution, where I had aims and outcomes for the course. And I had to write all the aims, and then I had to write the outcomes. And I used to be congratulated because the outcomes were remarkably similar to the aims. And obviously I just changed the grammar of the same statements. And it was an absurd notion of what education might be. And yet we're all kind of performing this. And I think Tim's getting to that sense of finding a space in which, and others are getting to, is finding a space in which there's accidentalism and kind of miscommunication that seems to work, and indirection that seems really helpful, and all sorts of things that you can't and wouldn't want to be able to control, that gets away from that pedagogical model of one foot in front of the other. So that's my sense of it.
thanks, Sam. Anyone else want to add anything? Or, I mean, it's a good question. I'm just going to quickly check the chat. Do we have anything else? No?
No more questions.
No more questions?
Yeah, there's one from Rebecca.
Yeah.
Oh, what's
That question?
Do you want to add Rebecca Sinker in?
Okay, she can speak.
Hi, Rebecca. Do you want to speak your question? We can hear you now.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so James just said we can speak to audiences in the right way when we need to, and talked about some different audiences who you engage with and speak to, and I guess address the way you speak. And of course, many of your research priorities clearly address issues of inequality, bias, and exclusion. So I wondered how you ensure your work and ideas are relevant and accessible and understood beyond academic and HE frames. Do you feel you have a responsibility for wider public understanding? And if so, how do you evaluate the success of this? If that's not too big a question.
No, that's a great question. Okay.
Do you want to go first, Alice? Sounds like you do.
I'm happy to. Yeah. We maybe it's relevant to everyone.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us do research that's co-research, if you like. So certainly in the areas that I work of music practice, music is definitely not something that's constrained to the academy. So you know that it's working. You know that your evaluation is whether people join you, I suppose, in making. So if you make a new instrument, do people beyond the academy want to play with you? You know, if you make music, are people beyond? You know, do those ideas resonate as strongly within us beyond, if you like? And in more applied conservation work, all of that is community led. Is from the world, is a kind of co-design, if you like. So I think certainly in the areas that I work in, there isn't, those boundaries are fairly fluid. There's an open exchange, and if you like, the ideas or the problems are coming from the world rather than being generated inside the academy. That's just my perspective, so I don't know.
I mean, I was going to add something just briefly on a project that's coming to an end called Making African Connections. And it's primarily it's a UK funded project. It's mostly UK academics. We're working with small museums in the southeast of England. And we have partners in Southern Africa, in Botswana, in Namibia, and in Sudan. And one of the things that I've thought about a lot with that project, my role in it basically was to kind of build a digital infrastructure so that the project had a place to experiment during the course of the project, and to enable communities outside of small parts of southern England to kind of have access to these materials in some way. And now we're coming to an end. Two things really strike me. One is that we published a report which is not particularly academic, in the sense that just loads of people involved in the project have written very small things, from junior research associates who work with us to individuals in cultural institutions in Sudan, and have written just short reflections on being involved in a project of that nature. And the other thing I've really learned from that project is kind of the extent to which, when trying to work with audiences outside of the academy, that sometimes using phrases like co-production is unhelpful. You might end up co-opting co-production to be something that sounds like the sort of thing universities want to do. But if you're not actually doing it, you need to stop saying it. And maybe we did say it too often sometimes, and later on we learned not to. The project does have decolonial in it, in the project title. And maybe our work isn't decolonial, because we're not literally sort of fixing land relations. We're trying to work with museums. Maybe our work is anti-colonial. And I guess my point is that at different times in the project, different parts of the partners outside of academia felt frustrated with us. And maybe at times we were resistant to that frustration, but I think we got better at understanding where their frustration was coming from. And we've now got towards the end of the project in a place of harmony where we probably could do better work now if the project was continuing in a strange way. And hopefully there are ways in which that project can continue. I mentioned that project because evaluation came up in the question. And in terms of how the project's evaluated, well, from an academic perspective, the project delivered on its aims. The project completed outputs. The project put some stuff online. But in terms of really what it's done for the community of partners, the evaluation should really be, well, we failed quite a lot, but failed in ways that have worked really productively, hopefully towards better work in the future. And for me, that feels like we would get no credit from the people who evaluate stuff. But if we're evaluating it amongst ourselves, I think that feels like a good output to me. And if any of my colleagues working on this project are sitting in the audience aghast at my kind of comments on it, I think in a way, one of the things I've kind of hopefully taken from that work is that sometimes we need to kind of have that kind of humble level of honesty about how we think it's gone. And to me, that feels like a really great output, that we've got to a good place at the end, even if some points during that project, that kind of relationship with people outside of academia was not as strong or wasn't working quite as well, for reasons that we're all kind of have some different responsibilities for.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you're evaluating those relationships and kind of learning from them and kind of not. I mean, that's the thing. We don't take for granted the kind of community aspect of the work that we do. Tim, you look like you have your hand up.
Yeah, oh, sorry. I actually just wanted to draw attention to your work with community archiving and the extent to which it actually does model an entirely different relationship between the academy and communities of interest. And I think it's fantastic. And I also think that it is a template. It provides a template along with James's work and many other people, but for precisely how the academy can escape, talking to itself and failing to talk to others.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and one of the things that I wanted to highlight from the work that I did with Rachel Thompson and Alex was part of that as well. Alex, show your show your face if you want to. But Alex Pepper, who's our research technician in the lab, was part of the reanimating data team. So prior to COVID, we had a few kind of experiments with the reanimating data. Was based on a collection of sociological interviews from 1989 called the Women's Risk and Age Project. So with that data set, we did some public sound exhibitions and we did some experiments with sound installation, which included kind of algorithmic uses of the sound to kind of have an immersive embodied experience of what that sound was like. What we also did was Esther, who was one of the research fellows on that project, also worked a lot with some youth groups and some theatre performance group in Manchester. And through engagement with that data set, the performance group actually did, I think it was maybe a 2-hour-long performance based on those interviews. So thinking about that engagement in different audience, speaking to different people, speaking to different audiences, I think that performance, and some of it is on YouTube, and I can send a link afterwards, it's really powerful because it really demonstrates what happens when you don't, as Tim was saying, when you speak to outside the academy, and I think that's where the kind of power of that collection really lied, in that interaction. So that, I think that was, massively important as well, thinking about that as beyond academic audiences. So I don't know if there's any more questions in the chat or two hands raised. I don't want to show.
This is our super slick moment. And this is the moment, of course, where I say that any kind of research group that vaguely does digital things, that all our technologies go wrong. So I think our hands have been raised.
I think they're old hands. This is the problem with raised hands. We never know which is new, which is old. Okay. Just to quickly note, Kate has put it in the chat, but a member of the festival's team may contact webinar attendees for their feedback after the event. So if you do not wish to be contacted, please email the festival's producers or a member of the festival's team to opt out of these communications. That's just some last minute housekeeping.
Can I ask a member of the panel a question?
Of course you can.
Can I ask Alice a question?
Yes.
That's giving me a look of So, Alice, how has it felt to work with people who keep using the phrase digital humanities?
I don't have a problem with the phrase digital humanities.
I know you don't, but I want to know how you feel, because it's not. This is where we're supposed to be talking, right? Because people say digital humanities and then they never really kind of agree what they mean. And I don't want to get into definitions things, but coming from outside of those spaces, I think it's been really important for me to work with people who kind of, in a way, don't care about what it means and just want to do good work. And I'm really interested in to know kind of how it's felt the last kind of 6 years, working with people who, some of whom were kind of coalesced around this notion of the age. But we hardly use that phrase in this whole hour, right? And I think that's illuminating and important.
I read David Berry's book on the beach before I applied to the job. And I don't know if I was any the wiser or not. It's felt great. It's felt challenging and confusing. And I think the fact that Thor has written a successful ERC bid largely with a research model based on observing the lab evolving, miscommunicating, and then being able to communicate is testament to the value of those conversations.
I think Ben wants to jump in at this point. You had your hand up, Ben. No, you can't unmute
You're
yourself.
muted, Ben.
I had my hand up. I don't think
your hand up.
Okay, I didn't realise I did. So I'm going to have to think of something to say very quickly. No, but I mean, I'm not sure about this miscommunication thing. I think that what happens in the first, I mean, this is going back to the history of the lab, which I guess we are talking about, is that we had a lot of arguments about what digital humanities meant. And having arguments isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you have arguments, and then you kind of course, we didn't then meet and agree a definition of what we all agree meant by digital humanities, but I think it productively made us think about what was different about what we were doing, that meant that we ended up using the term digital humanities less as a kind of consensual term. So we were I think we became happier not to have a consensus around what it meant, if you see what I mean. But also we then did communicate in other more productive ways as well. So that's good. Yeah, I mean, I think digital humanities is quite a difficult term anyway, because it doesn't speak so well in other. It's kind of more commonly thought about in disciplines like literature and history than it is in media and some other, maybe music as well. So that it doesn't, when you start using the term, people don't really necessarily understand what you're talking about, even though they do understand what you're talking about. So sometimes it seems better to use other terms like digital methods or whatever it may be.
I apologise for putting you on the spot.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I think Rebecca tried to come back. Yes. Can we bring Rebecca back in?
Yeah. You've got another question from someone else as well.
Okay. So is Rebecca there, maybe?
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for elaborating on the ways in which you worked effectively beyond academia. It wasn't entirely apparent from your initial presentation, but you made it much more apparent. And I think James's point about recognizing failure, even if you might need to hide that from the funders, but in terms of the most important learning points for the participants and also for the co-created knowledge, I think is really significant and obviously a core part of agile working as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. Can I speak a sec?
Of course you can.
So I wanted just to add to that was a nice anecdote. Thank you, James. There was actually one other thing, Rebecca, on that thought. Actually running a project at the moment in Ecuador, which can't be there, but I have an ex-PhD student who's doing field work with some indigenous communities, and they are so fed up of academics, it's almost anthropology as extractivism, that she has gone in working with an NGO that's been working with the communities for a long time. We're trying to support them in a heritage application, their shamanic communities of Ecuador, that she's described as a technician to them, because it's only by describing her as a technician that we can gain the trust and actually support them in what they need to do. And I think that's quite a nice, it feels like a timely and important turn from decades of kind of anthropologists and academics going into these other cultures to understand them and report back to the academy. And it feels really timely and quite heartwarming that these communities actually reject anyone that wants to do that, and that we can that support where ideas from the academy can be useful. Then that is absolutely on their terms for what they want to do, and that feels good, actually. So thank you. That's a really important question. I wanted to then respond to Maluk. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Mayuk, and say yes, Mayuk. Please drop us an email. We'll put the email in the chat. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to talk to. You're welcome to talk to any of us individually or as a group. If you drop in the SHL email, we can make sure we put you in touch with the right people. Kate, would you mind putting in the right email for Mike to talk to? Thank you. And are there any other questions from the panelists or from the attendees?
I think
I just wanted to add one thing about in response to your last point, Alice, around anthropology, which is a deferred response to Rebecca too, which is one of my earlier pieces of work was a piece called Against Value, and it took a lot of kind of heart from the anthropologist Marilyn Strathern's work on audit cultures. And I think it's a really interesting dynamic around the auditing of ostensibly virtuous kind of material and data, and how that can become itself problematic as much as anything else. And I just to recommend really her edited collection on audit cultures. I think it's a really profound kind of contribution to this that debate. I'll put a little quotation from it in the chat as well, but I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Sam.
I think we might finish up then. If anyone wants to have the final say, I don't know. Does anyone have the final word? I mean, I just want to thank everyone for coming along. I want to thank our panel, the contributions from Suzanne, Liam, Sam, Ben, and obviously Tim as well, and all to every member of the audience as well. Some great conversation there, some great chat. Please do keep in contact, and hopefully at some point we will be able to have some in-person events, and you can experience the lab in all its form. But yeah, does anyone else want to say anything?
Thanks very much.
Yeah? Okay. Thank you all, and speak soon. Okay, enjoy the rest of the Festival Ideas. Definitely have a look and see what's on. Yeah. There's some great things there. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Are we live?
I'm gonna leave him and we'll zoom you back in.